Hello dear students, my name is Kārlis Apelps and I'm the project expert for Secure EU project that is financed by Erasmus Plus cooperation partnership and co-funded by the European Union. My today's task is to give you a general introduction about the security risk management. But to begin with security risk management, we have to define what is a risk. And because our project is mainly based around the ISO 31000 standard, and in that standard this risk is defined as an effect or uncertainty of objective. This effect can be positive or negative on our objective and on the outcomes of the objective. To understand more, you can see in this picture that is in front of you, there is a risk, which is the hanging box in the air. Our objective or our asset, which is another term that you can know, the person standing below the box. And then there is a risk event that can happen if the risk is not mitigated or prevented. And that risk, of course, then in the end occurs as an incident, and it destroys or impacts our objective, our asset, our person. So why is risk management important for security specialists? Well, because security's main goal is to protect the objective, or the objective of the security specialist is the objective. So you can see here that it's also visible that every security specialist has to protect the risk, the objective, and everything involved. Well, how can risks be categorized? Well, first of all, by their origins. So they can be natural, as in natural disasters, tornadoes, volcanoes, earthquakes, and similar stuff. Technological, so for example, electricity can be a risk. Some fire hazards from chemicals can be risks. Also, some system malfunction can be a risk. The third category would be social or human origins, so burglars, arsonists, criminalists, thugs, all of those. Then we can categorize our risks by the affected parties, and they are either individuals, groups, or the whole organization, or they can be categorized by their area of impact, so local, regional, national, or international. Then we can categorize, the third category is the affected asset or the objective, and those can be finance, reputation, health or life, emotional health, physical assets, as in things and stuff, and of course information. The fourth category of risk categorization is the origin type. So if we know that the origins are either natural, technological, or social and human, then the origin type can be either natural, as in unexpected, or a planned risks, that which you can forecast to happen. And the last but not least category of risks is the impact severity. Those who are acceptable risks that don't do very much damage, but they happen and they impact us. Unacceptable risks, those that impact us and we cannot accept their impact severity. Or catastrophic risks that can impact us so much that we cannot continue our operations. So how does risk management process look like? As you can see here, there are 8 principles of the ISO 31000, and of course the first and main principle is value creation and protection of the organization. And in those 8 principles there is of course that the statements that risk management process has to be integrated in the company, it has to be a part of company, it cannot be a separate third party process that happens without the involvement of organization. It has to be structured and comprehensive, so it has to go through all of the organization's processes and structures. It has to be customized, so one size does not fit all organizations, and this is a very important thing that you have to understand, that even if your company's or your friend's company does risk management in a certain way, it doesn't mean that those risk management management processes will directly apply also to you. It has to be inclusive, and you have to think about all the risk mitigation processes and risk scenarios, including all the possible assets and all the possible ways how you can prevent them and what objectives can be affected. They have to be dynamic, so risk management process is not a one-time thing that you do once per a decade. You have to do it either quarterly or monthly or twice a year, depends on the dynamics of your organization. It has to adapt to the changing situation. So you have to use also best available information, so you have to be sure that the information is, we can say that it's integrated, it's confidential, and it's available freely to the specialists in your organization. So what it means is basically that your organization has to know that answer or that information that affects your risk management process is the newest, the correct one, and is based on your specific situation. Human and cultural factors is the 7th principle, and it says that your company has to take into account the differences between different religious, cultural, ideological, and geographical differences between people who are working in your organization, because they build your culture. So part of the risk management process is to, of course, include diverse risk management personnel to counter this, to accept this principle in your organization. And of course, the last principle is continuous improvement, because the risk management process is always ongoing, as stated before. Now here you can see the risk management process. Previously were the principles, and the risk management process, of course, starts with defining the scope, context, and criteria of the organization. Then moving forward, when you have this laid down, you have risk assessment, which is a 3-step based process. So risk identification, risk analysis, and risk evaluation. Then when we have assessed our risks, we can treat them, and when we have treated our risks, then there is an ongoing process of monitoring and reviewing our risks, of recording and reporting our risks, and communicating and consulting our stakeholders and shareholders about the risks that are present in our company. And of course, all of these things are interconnected. So even though if you start with the scope, criteria, and context setting, you have to understand that there is also the communicating and consulting part in that also. And when you start the risk assessment process, or when you have gone through it, you have to, of course, record and report all those risks. And if you have found something very severe, you have to directly report it. And afterwards, when you have done this process, of course, the monitoring and reviewing part is very integral of this process, because you have to remember that one of the principles of ISO 31000 standard risk management process is to be a dynamic and continuous improvement process. And here you can see a basic outline of risk analysis table. How you can see here is there are 2 sample objectives, or 2 assets as we call them. So in the first asset you can see that there is financial data that is being safeguarded, and the risk is that the financial data is lost due to a ransomware attack. We calculate the impact of such a risk and the probability of such a risk, and then we multiply it to get a risk factor. That allows us to prioritize the risks that are most severe and important to our organization. Likewise, you can see the second risk sample, which is the asset is the building, and the risk is an office fire due to mishandling of candles. Again, we do the impact analysis, the probability analysis, and we multiply to get a risk factor. Impact analysis and probability analysis is mostly based upon 3 things. First of all, your own experience How do you think? How often can it happen? What can be the most popular impact scenarios, and so on. The second thing is the experience of others. So you can ask your colleagues, your peers, your former colleagues in other companies, and just analyze how their risks or impacts are assessed and what is their methodology. And the third category for analyzing impact and probability is, of course, official statistics or data that is being supplied by official companies or official census bureaus, and they often are very good for a statistical approach to risk analysis. And afterwards, you can see that this risk matrix shows you how you can categorize all the risks when you multiply the risk factor. And if you want to go a step further, of course, there is a treatment part. And to each risk type, we can have specific treatment types and a risk owner that is responsible for implementing the risk treatment and for reviewing and monitoring of this risk. This is all in the basics of security risk management, and I guide you further to our colleagues who will produce more interesting stuff. Thank you.